Hello everyone and welcome to an amazing game you guys suggested. As soon as it finished, even before it finished, you guys started sending me messages. This is the game you're showing next, and of course I checked out what you guys were talking about and I realized that yes, this is most certainly the game I'm showing next. Levon Aronian versus Gukesh, the penultimate round of the Grandchester SuperUnited Croatia tournament. And as you know, a great misfortune has befallen Magnus Carlsen and his family. His mother passed away, and as Magnus was supposed to be playing in this event, it was Levon who came as a substitute last minute. So probably Levon wasn't even prepared for this tournament. It's hard to say if he got in any preparation at all, which makes this game even more impressive. So let's check it out. It's Levon with white opens with pawn to e4, and their head-to-head score so far, they've played 3 classical games, all 3 ended in a draw. However, in rapid time format, Levon has defeated Gukesh 4-1 with 4 draws, so that's a pretty big difference. And of course, Gukesh has to work on his speed chess, much like Fabiano Caruana a couple of years ago, as in classical, of course, Gukesh seems to be untouchable for the moment, but in rapid we've seen some slip-ups, even though he did come into the last day of the rapid sharing 3rd place. So okay, we have pawn to e5 by Gukesh, knight to f3, knight to c6, and bishop to c4. We have bishop to c5 and pawn to d3. Again, going for the suboptimal line, the Gioco Pianissimo variation. Knight to f6, we have pawn to h3 and pawn to d6. And here, almost exclusively bishop to g5 and knight to c3 are played. But Levon goes pawn to a4, and there is one game where pawn to a6, a5 was played, but here we have pawn to a6 by Gukesh, and it is now as of move 6 that we have a completely new game. So okay, pawn to c3, the usual stuff in the Gioco Piano. b4 is coming, castles is coming. You're going to play something like knight d2, knight f1, knight to e3, knight to g3, knight f5. The moves that you always play. We have castles by Gukesh, knight b to d2, and rook to e8. And now b4 and castles are the 2 moves, again, that come to mind here. But Levon does not do that. He plays knight to f1. He keeps his king in the center of the board, sort of taunting Gukesh to go pawn to d5 and start an attack against that white king. And it is the strongest move. Gukesh, of course, realizes it and plays pawn to d5, but he did invest some 3.5, maybe even 4 minutes on this move. Okay, e captures on d5 and pawn to e4, opening up the path to attack the white king. D captures on e4, knight captures, and bishop to e3, closing off the e file. Knight to e5, bringing more pieces into the attack, and Levon trades. Knight captures, rook captures, and now queen to e2. Aligning the queen along with the king, with the black rook on e5. Knight to d6, attacking the bishop and freeing up the e file for the rook. And okay, there are some moves that come to mind here. You could move the bishop to d3 to get away from the knight. You could castle queenside. Objectively, castling queenside could even be, well, also with bishop to d3, the best idea here, but not for a player like Levon Aronian. Levon is a true artist, and he plays bishop captures on c5. He sacrifices his queen, and, well, objectively, it is hard to say. Well, how long did Levon spend here? Not a lot. He spent like a minute and a half, and even if you allowed the engine to really crunch the numbers here, it's still, okay, black is better. It's hard to say if black is winning by force, and especially not in a rapid game. So, you know, it's definitely a Levon move. Rook captures on e2 with check, bishop captures on e2, and now knight to e4. With an attack on the bishop on c5, we have bishop back to e3, and bishop to f5, continuing development. We have rook to d1, putting the rook behind the pawn. Of course, you are also planning b4, c4, b4, maybe c5, d6. You have to create some counterplay here as you are down a queen. Queen to d7, preparing to bring the rook into the game, and bishop to d4. We have queen captures on a4, and knight to e3. Finally, preparing to castle, and we'll see what's what. We have bishop to g6, castles, and rook to e8. Rook to a1, attacking the black queen, queen back to d7, and now rook f to e1. We have pawn to h6, creating some breathing room for the king, but also a retreat square for the bishop if needed. Rook a to d1, and now knight to d6. We have pawn to c4, now preparing pawn to b4, so of course Gukesh stops it. Pawn to a5, and rook back to c1. We have knight to f5, offering a trade of knights, bishop to g4, pinning as the queen is on d7. We have h5, and knight captures on f5. Now, you could capture right away. For example, h captures on g4. Gukesh first trades off a pair of rooks. Rook captures on e1. Rook captures, and bishop captures on f5. And you could trade off the bishops here as well, but he goes for bishop captures on h5. He prefers to keep the bishop pair on the board and the rook nicely controlling the e file. So, okay, it's not that terrible. You have the c and d pawn. You have the dark square bishop and the rook for a queen. This is definitely playable. We have pawn to b5. Preparing it with bishop to d3, maybe bishop d3, b3, and b5 was slightly better. But okay, little time on the clock. We have pawn to b5, and c captures on b5. Queen captures on d5, and rook to e8 with check now. So Gukesh eliminates the danger of the passed pawn being created, but he now gets his king under attack. We have king to h7, and the bishop to c3. And now you have to decide what to do here. You could play something like bishop to e6 to just keep the f7 pawn defended, or even maybe something like bishop captures on h3. It looks very nice. It's pretty much, again, a glorified draw, because bishop f3, and now you can play queen g5, prevent captures, and if rook to e5 attacking your queen, you can now give a check. Queen to c1 check, rook e1, you go back, queen to g5, rook e5, and so on. So many possibilities here. But after bishop c3, Gukesh played queen captures on b5, and now Levon grabs the f7 pawn. And this is now very dangerous territory. Queen d7 attacks the bishop, bishop to g8 with check. This was unavoidable. King h6, and rook to e5 with an attack on the bishop, but also on the a5 pawn. So pawn to a4, rook to d5, forcing the queen to keep defending the bishop here, or to attack the bishop on g8. So queen e8, only reasonable move, and rook captures on f5. Queen captures on g8, and now rook to c5, going after the c7 pawn, and queen to d8, nicely defending. We have bishop to e5, now you can no longer defend the pawn, and queen to e7. We have rook to c6 with check, so your rook will not be a target on c5, king g5, and f4 with check first before claiming the pawn, king f5, and only now rook captures on c7, and you're going to grab this pawn as well. And now look at this, queen to b4, rook captures on g7, and this is the position. Yes, you still have a queen, but the bishop and pawn are defending each other, so you can never do anything about that. You have only a king and a queen. Also, the b2 pawn is defended, so you can never do anything with your a pawn. So this is now either Gukesh can manage a draw, or Levon will manage to push those pawns and win the game. So let's see what happens. King to e4, or maybe Gukesh can somehow checkmate the white king with the king and queen. King h2, queen to e1, and now rook to g3. Cutting off the queen's reach to h4, so we want to start advancing the pawn. King f5, pawn to h4, and now queen e2, stopping pawn to h5, but now rook g5 check, king to e4, and pawn to h5. We have queen to e1, now threatening a check here, but just rook g3, again blocking the queen. Queen d1 going after the pawn, but now pawn to h6, and you don't care about this check because you can just play rook h3 and continue advancing the pawn to victory. So queen to d7, guarding the h7 square this way, rook h3, preparing to advance the pawn, and now queen to h7. So if Gukesh's position wasn't sad up until this point, it is now extremely sad. So you don't have a move, plus also the strongest piece in the game is now stuck, guarding this pawn from moving forward. We have rook to h4, king to f5. We have bishop to g7, sort of checkmating the black queen here, and king to e4, freeing up the f5 square for the queen. And now comes king to g3 and king to f5, blocking the white king from entering the game. But rook h5 check, king to g6, and now king to g4. There's also an interesting idea of giving a check here, and then after king captures, king to f4 with something like g4 and bishop to f6, but it is not checkmate, so you have to be careful. It's something I would maybe do in a game and then blunder it away. So king to g4, we have king to f7, and now rook to f5 with check. Now if you go here, it's a mate in one, rook f8 will be checkmate, so you have to look elsewhere. King to e6, and now rook to f6 with check. We have king to e7 and pawn to f5. And now you have a pretty good idea of what is about to happen here. Queen to g8, we have king to g5 and queen to d5. We have king to g6, queen captures on g2 with check. Gukesh sacrifices a pawn, but he doesn't need it. King h7, we have queen to d5, and now rook to f8. We have king to d7 and king to h8. And now you can see that these pawns will be marched forward, and one of those pawns will queen. Queen to b3, we have pawn to h7 and queen to c4. So Gukesh's only hope now is to get maybe some sort of a perpetual, or maybe, you know, somehow sacrifice this pawn and stalemate himself, but it is, I mean, very, very unlikely. Pawn to f6, we have king to e6 and king to g8, and he was in this position on move 68 that Gukesh resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. Brilliant, brilliant play by Levon with the white pieces. I mean, sacrificing the queen like that. For those of you who enjoyed when I finished the game, yes, you do have some discoveries here, just not very good ones. Let's say king to f5 with check, f7, and now h8 just becomes a queen, and that's it. King g5, and all of a sudden you had a queen against the rook and bishop, but now it's a queen, bishop, and rook versus a queen. Of course, you're gonna get checkmated in a few moves. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Brilliant, brilliant stuff by Levon. I know we guys you guys and myself included are used to it, but I mean, how does Levon do it? I mean, finding bishop captures on c5, and you can see he didn't even invest all that much time on this. Just bishop captures on c5. He's like, let's play chess. I mean, I have two pieces for for the queen, a piece and a minor piece and a rook for the queen. Let's play chess. You know. Chess they did play, and Levon showed why he is considered one of the most interesting players in the world even nowadays. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Tough break for Gukesh, as this is his second loss in a day, losing to Fabiano Caruana in the previous round. We'll see if he can bounce back a little bit, but it doesn't seem like he will be winning the rapid section and going into Blitz as the leader. But you know, we'll see what it does in the Blitz. So I would like to thank Michael Hoff, Lawrence Brazier, Edward Bazo, Kevin O'Grady, and James Eugene Cashman for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions, but mostly covering this event until it finishes. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.